Good day, brothers and sisters. This is Reverend Dr. Ambrose Carol. Welcome to the race. We're here to let you know that the race is on, that the world is yet a interesting place to live in, and yet there are people of God, people of the divine that are doing great things in the midst of this world order with joy, with passion, and doing it in a way that pleases God. So very glad to have our friend and brother here with us today, Fletcher Harper from Green Faith. Fletcher is an Episcopal priest, a graduate of Princeton University and Union Theological Seminary. He is a pioneer of the religious environmental movement. He has helped spearhead the faith-based fossil fuel divestment movement, mobilized tens of thousands of people of faith for climate marches and public actions, and built Green Faith from a New Jersey focus group into a global organization. So very glad to have our friend and brother here. I first met him, man, it must have been around 2013, 14.
We were both younger then, my friend. We were both younger.
Much younger. I remember I was at Green for All just starting out, and he heard about the work and came in really as a welcome committee, understood that someone was new in this space and really came and gave me a great pep talk and really encouraged me along the way. And since then, I've had an opportunity to watch the growth and development of Green Faith. In fact, what was it, 2017 or 18 or so, when he had the awesome opportunity to lead the faith delegation of our national climate march. He allowed me to come along and help out with that piece here in the Bay Area. I learned so much and am forever grateful. He is our friend and our brother. Fletcher, why don't you say hello to all of the people?
Well, it's great to be with you, Reverend Ambrose. You're a dear friend and a colleague, and we've learned enormous amounts from you, and greetings to your community here online. Thanks so much for the chance to be with you today.
Thank you, man. I'm so excited. I can't hide it. I'm about to lose control. I think I like it. Listen, every time we get together, it's really fire because we, have this awesome opportunity to do this work. Portion of the Bible says, for such a time as this. When we look at the larger context of where we are in the world, just coming out of COP28, hearing people, seeing people in places and spaces, talking about the environment, talking about justice, some of the same institutions that are doing much to pollute the world all over, still have their hands on the gears. It is really an interesting time, sometimes an overwhelming time, but still blessed to be able to do this work for such a time as this. Listen, Fletcher, give us, when we think about scripture, when we think about, as people who delve in theology, doing work for the environment, what are some of the things that you learn from scripture? What are some of the places that you go to that fuels your ability to do this work?
So I'm gonna give you two. First one is right from the start, right from the book of Genesis, where in chapter 1, verse 30, God has made everything and looks out and says, this is awesome. Right. And, really lays in on that. And we all know that passage, but what I think is important about it is that from where I sit, back in the day when that was written, people were very vulnerable to the natural world in a way that they're not as vulnerable today. We've got many of us, most of us have more shelter, access to modern energy. Back in the day, from where I sit, I don't know that it was so clear that the natural world was very good all the time. But God throws down and says, this is really, really, really good. The whole thing. So to me, that sets an attitude towards creation right from the start. and it's a little bit provocative. And I think that's important to keep in mind.
Yeah.
Go to the other end of the Bible, Revelation 22, right near the closing, and God is introducing the New Jerusalem and paradise.
Yes.
What is paradise?
Yes.
And it's a city, which is not the normal kind of vision of paradise you get from environmentalists. Environmentalists usually like the beautiful pictures without any people in them, right? So God says, no, it's a city. It's a city, which we like, but it's a city where nature and humanity are perfectly interwoven. So what's down the middle of the street? It's a river flowing with the water of life. And then there's one of my favorite phrases from the entire Bible is on either side of the Fifth Avenue, on the either side of the main street in paradise. There are leaves sort of over the river, and the Bible says the leaves of the trees are for the healing of the nations. And to me, that just says that we are in this together, that God gives us nature as this unbelievable gift, and that we better wake up. And there's a piece from Second Chronicles. I can't remember the exact verse and chapter, but David has just raised all of the money, all of the resources for building the temple, which he's going to leave to his son Solomon to do.
That's it.
And you and I know what it means to raise money, right? We gotta thank your donors. You gotta make them feel good about their gift. So David gets all the wealthy folks pile up all the natural resources, and it's great. I can't remember. It's verses about this much wood and this much right.
Bring it.
So David stands up in front of all of his major donors. And the first thing he says is, all things come of thee, O Lord, and of thine own have we given thee. And, you and I raise money. You don't say that to your major donors.
That's not what you say. Say, thank you, man. You did a great work this year.
He puts it out there. And so to me, again, this is a sort of provocative reminder that, another one, and then I'll stop after this one. Psalm 24, verse 1. Ambrose, very interesting. I for many years at the beginning of time with Green Faith, I would ask exactly this same question to people when I would say, what's the scripture verse that speaks to you about this? What I found when I was talking to my friends who are African-American clergy or people of faith, they almost always would come up with this verse. And my white clergy or friends, sometimes they'd come up with the Genesis one. Sometimes they're white clergy, they wouldn't necessarily think about the Bible too much. Anyway, but I started thinking to myself, what's special about this verse? And I think for the Black church context, what does Psalm 24 verse 1 say? The earth is the Lord's and all that's in it. And what's implicit in that? It doesn't belong
to y'all.
Don't belong to those white people. Don't belong to the man.
That's right.
To me, what I think is important about the Bible's witness is that there is over and over again this provocative assertion about how good and how important the natural world is. And from that, what follows is you better darn well take care of it, and you better respect it, because it is something that comes from someone and some force that is much, much bigger than what you're about.
My God. Well, y'all heard him. Y'all listen, Fletcher can preach, y'all. Y'all better bring him. Listen, I asked him for one script. I don't think I got about 4 or 5. I got some shifts and moves in there as well. I think that's what it's all about. And provocative is right. And I love the way that you laid it out. And I've been listening and at the same time stuck when you talked about how God said it's good, but how people experience the world at that time, the storms and the snow and outside and the animals. Can you really experience that as all good? But God says, yes, it's good, and that there's a certain balance that God has in control. And I think that that's helpful even for me today, as I am overwhelmed by what's happening yet and still in the Sudan, as I'm overwhelmed by what's happening in Israel, that yes, even in the midst of these difficulties, that we are yet in the hands of the divine, and it is yet good. Oh my
Yep.
goodness. Powerful, powerful, powerful. And then you reach for that scripture. That's my father, the late Reverend Benjamin Carroll. He used to close with that, and the leaves he pulled down, right, are there for the healing of the nation. Lord have mercy. All right, all right, all right. Well, I probably should have got to the preaching last, amen. All
That's
right.
all right. We got ourselves warmed up, so that's good.
I love it. So tell me again, when you think about environmentalism and faith, I often tell people who are asking me, how are we beating down the walls of the Black church community, exposing them to the environment, how difficult it is. And I always say to them, well, honestly, brothers and sisters, when it comes time for movement, it's very rarely everybody. It's always a percentage of individuals. And for us, we believe that between 1% and 5% of African-American congregations across this nation and abroad moving together is more than enough to maintain a movement. So for you and in your context, what was it that moved you to this line, this work of the vineyard, this branch? What is it that spoke to you, and how did you come into it?
I have always, since before I went to seminary, been an activist. I have always loved nature. In my school, I was organizing nature fairs when I was in 3rd and 4th grade. So I've always been, for me, and I think this is true for a lot of people, I have experienced the healing hand of God outdoors. I know what it means to be made more alive through nature. I know what it means to have a sense of awe and of wonder and of majesty and of gratitude and of appreciation, and of respect and reverence for something that's a lot bigger than me. So that's one of the places where it started for me, was that really fundamental experience of God. And I think that is, if it's not universal, I think it's close to universal. I think that many, many, many people have that kind of experience in their own lives that they can reach back to and touch.
Got it.
So, but then I also felt that there was a social justice element to this, which is that you've got, governments, major extractive industries, oil and gas and mining companies around the world that are treating the natural world and the communities that are impacted by their operations, and the communities that are impacted downstream when their products get burned and combusted.
That's right.
That are treating those communities with a level of disregard, and that is just unspeakably wrong. Yeah. We work with folks in Africa, Asia, Latin America, Europe, North America. Wow. I talk to a lot of people who have lost their homes because of climate-induced flooding and disaster. I've talked to a lot of people who no longer can get water from the wells that have sustained their communities for many years because they've dried up because of the droughts. And those same people have lost their crops and their farmland, and their animals have died. I mean, this is just dead wrong. And it's because of greed. It's because of the power of the fossil fuel industry. It's because the religious and political right have tried to weaponize this issue and made everybody scared that if you don't drill, baby, drill, then somehow the world's going to come to an end. It's just wrong. And at the same time, you've got 800 million people around the world who don't have access to modern forms of energy when the technology has existed for decades. Yeah. And, governments can always seem to find money for war in Ukraine. They can always seem to find money for COVID relief, which they should. But they don't seem to find the tiny amount of money that would provide access to modern forms of energy for everybody on the planet. And so to me, it's that combination of recognizing the sacredness of the earth and recognizing the injustice of the current situation and recognizing there's a timeline on this. I mean, look,
that's the issue.
You know, my friend, this is within our lifetime that these changes have to happen. This is not a problem without a time clock attached to it. You know, every year matters. And so I think that's, you know, that to me is what has drawn me into this. And now what keeps me going is this sort of frustration with, like, what is the deal? I mean, the US is the world's biggest fossil fuel producer right now. That's not okay. And it's not necessary. But I think that the political calculation that too many people make is that there's a risk with taking a strong arm to the fossil fuel industry and stopping issuing those permits. And it's, you know, one of the reasons that I know that Green the Church's work is so important is that you're helping raise awareness within Black churches about, look, there is a better way and we've got to go for it fast and hard. And that's what matters. And we got to get those jobs with the solar and wind industries and the electric vehicle industries into the community. We got to make our voices heard advocating for that job training and job placement.
That's right.
And we've got to make, you know, when we've got to make our voices heard to close down those plants that are fouling the air and making our communities sick too. So I think it's, you know, it's why your work matters so much.
My God, thank you. You know, everything comes up for me as I listen about balance and kind of staying the course. And Green Faith was represented at COP this year, COP 28. Can you give us, you know, who are in the Black church, a lot of us, you know, we do a lot of travel, you know, Black folk travel a lot. We travel all over, but most time, you know, that me and my friends travel, we're in resorts. So talk to me about how the world is really doing. And when you go to a thing, right, that is, you know, represented by the United Nations, and we're having these conversations about the health of the planet, how are we doing?
Well, we're not doing well enough. I mean, here's the deal. This year's climate negotiations were hosted in the United Arab Emirates, which is a major oil and gas producer, and which also is a very repressive government in terms of human rights. There is no freedom of expression or freedom of assembly in that country. So and the person who was appointed by the government to be essentially the chair of the meetings was the CEO of the national oil company. So that's, you know, if that's not ridiculous enough to start with.
Right.
About a day before the negotiations started, the BBC revealed that this guy had used his position, which gives him access to schedule meetings with high-level officials in governments around the world. He had used his position to set up meetings to negotiate new oil and gas deals with 16 different countries, including the United States. And then if that's not enough for you, an audio tape emerged soon, right at the beginning of the climate negotiations, where he was on tape ridiculing the idea that a fossil fuel phase out was scientifically necessary.
Right.
So, I don't know what to see. So that's the starting point. So he got named and shamed some.
Fletcher, you almost made the preacher cuss. You almost made
but you know, we gotta pay attention to that, because it is unacceptable. It is wrong. And it is right to feel fed up with that kind of disgusting arrogance. So he was named and shamed, and what emerged out of the climate negotiations was a statement calling for a transition away from fossil fuels. Now, the media around the world gave that a lot of positive play. Here's the problem. It has no enforcement mechanisms or timetables attached to it, no timeline. It's less than voluntary. And so, you know, my friend, I'm a New Yorker, so I'm cynical by nature. Don't try to sell me that as a big step forward. I mean, that's don't insult our intelligence by asking to take that seriously. It's not enough.
Correct.
And it's, so my feeling is, what we've done with Green Faith and our partners and communities around the world is we have called for a 10-day stretch in this coming May, called Faiths for Climate Justice, where it's a global mobilization of people of different religious and spiritual backgrounds who need to, up from our pews and up from our prayer rugs and our meditation cushions, and let's go publicly into the streets, to governments, to financial institutions, and say, you got to do what's right. You got to phase out fossil fuels. You got to fund right away universal access to clean energy.
You're right.
You got to make it so that the historic major polluters have to pay for the damage that they've caused.
Yes.
This is, the moral calculus, it'll take some brain power to calculate the numbers, but the moral calculus is something that a 3-year-old could understand. It's a basic fairness issue.
Yeah.
And that's what we're calling for as a response to this, because we can't, you can't let this stuff stand. It's just not okay for major world leaders to behave as if that's an acceptable solution, especially at the end of the year when, I don't know. I live here in New Jersey, like we were saying earlier. Look, in early June with the wildfires in Canada, which were created by, guess what?
Yes.
I was going to go out to the Yankees game with my son. They called it off after batting practice because the ball went up in the smoke. Nobody could see it. Come on. Everybody's seen this stuff.
Everybody sees
the droughts. So we gotta, what changes, our forebears in faith taught us well that what changes is when people of faith peacefully get up on their feet and get to marching. And so that's what we're doing. And we're committed to making that as big as we possibly can.
Well heard. Brothers and sisters, again, this is Reverend Fletcher Harper, Episcopal priest, founder of Green Faith. We're so very delighted to have him with us on today. So much power. Listen, Dr. Fletcher, again, I think what you said is spot on. And I was talking with some colleagues earlier who are Catholic, and they were mentioning the need, and it may be a long shot, but how do you get the Pope to go over and begin to talk to people in the Emirates, to begin to talk about the moral responsibility? How do you go big at this time or go home? And I think from our history, you don't have money power, you do have people power. And I think it's more than past time for the people of the world to stand up. And it may have to be a kind of coming together globally that the world has never seen. And we have to begin to think that way of mobilizing. And so for me, a part of our question is, how can we be of service? How can the Black church connect and unite? We've been having conversations with some spiritual leaders and kings over in Ghana. I'm a part of a thing called the Atlantic Fellows for Racial Equity, and we're trying to have global conversations, but doing it from the standpoint of faith, right, is something that we've not been able to get the gears around the world to do. So how can we be helpful? How can the Black church be helpful, even for those who may not be traveling? What is it that we can do, and how can we yoke up with the work of Green Faith?
Well, I can think of a couple of things. One is we think that preaching and faith-based communication on this issue matters a lot. And if eco-theology 101 is to say, the earth is a gift and we got to take care of it,
sure,
what we need now is an eco-theology 2.0 that gives us some biblical language to talk about the principalities and powers that are destroying the planet right now, and that mobilizes our, because from our perspective, a lot of people say, oh, well, we're all at fault for the climate crisis.
Sure.
Actually, we don't agree with that. We think that there is a disproportionate responsibility that big governments, big oil and gas companies, and big banks and asset managers play. And it's not right to say that we're all equally responsible.
No, we're all
because we're not. They are making decisions that, and we need to raise that up. So part of one way that folks in your community, we would love to hear from folks who'd like to be part of an effort to raise up that kind of political theology for climate justice.
Sure.
I think number two is we'd love to have Green the Church and your community as a leading partner in the Faiths for Climate Justice mobilization this May. It's going to be a team effort. There's going to be, groups from around the world, and we would love to lift up your leadership and your presence as part of that. So we can talk about that. And again, for folks in your community who want to be part of that, these mobilizations work when we've got a lot of different contextualized expressions of passion, faith-filled around what this is about. So those are our two pieces right out the bat.
Thank you so much, Fletcher. Thank you so much. Again, honored to have this conversation on today, and I know it won't be the last. As we wind down to a close, again, as we're always looking for that next individual, those individuals who find themselves called and trying to figure out, how to start a nonprofit. And I've been toying with this element, this thought of making sure that we have, nonprofit prophets, that we have these individuals in our ranks. They may be trying to figure out how to focus on food. They may be trying to figure out, how do I take young people out into nature? They may be trying to figure out, as a pastor, how do I feed the people in my communities, or how do I help the homeless in the inner cities? Do you have a word for those? And I know you do, because you had a word for me when I was getting started. But what would you say to someone who's just starting out this week on their own journey to start their own nonprofit that has to do with the environment?
I would say lean deeply into your faith. You're doing that because something has moved you at a deep level, and that something comes from God, and it is the sustainable rocket fuel that is your superpower. The world desperately needs faith-inspired words of challenge, of hope, of provocation around this issue. And for folks in your community that, who are moved in this way, you have that. You have been gifted that. So lean into it. Be shaped by it. Be moved by it. And bring it out, because the world needs to hear it. And your voice matters.
Thank you so much, brothers and sisters. You've been listening to Reverend Fletcher Harper, founder of Green Faith, here with us today. Always an inspiration, always has a word of courage, always prompting us to our better angels, to listen to our better angels, always prompting us to come together as the beloved community. He is the word personified. Love him on to the day. And listen, share with the people how they may be able to learn more about your organization and more about your work as we wind up.
Yep, we're at www.greenfaith.org on the web. If you search for Green Faith online, you'll find us on different social media channels, on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. And my email address is fletcher@greenfaith.org. So shoot me a message if you'd like.
All right, you've heard it from himself. Brothers and sisters, again, this is Ambrose Carol, Reverend Fletcher Harper, and this is The Race, resilient, aboriginal, courageous, and empowering. We believe that the time is now, that we are in a race for the survival of the very planet. We are in a race against things that are against God and against balance. We are in a race. The race is on. Come on and be a part of good things. God bless you. And God bless you.